What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Turn on the Jets Live. I'm your host, Steven Zantz, joined by my co-host, Russo. We're excited to do this. It's been a while. I know you guys all are probably wondering what's been going on. I've had a lot going on in my life. If you don't know, I am getting married soon, so a lot of planning and stuff. But Russo, how are you doing, man?
I'm good. It's T-minus 2 months, right? 2 months and counting for your wedding. Just got out of your
Yes.
bachelor party in Chicago. So I can speak from experience, man. It'll be here before you know it. You'll blink your eyes and the wedding day will be here. So enjoy every second, man. But no, I'm happy for you. And things are crazy on my end too. Obviously, just work and 3 kids and all that comes with little league and stuff like that, man. It's a lot, but it's been a while since we've been back in the booth together. I think it was obviously pre-draft and maybe the first week or two of free agency. We kind of recap some stuff. So we got a lot of stuff to cover, man. A couple of months to make up here.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like the Reddick stuff is where we should start because it seems like there's been some discourse this week about how he didn't show up to OTAs, and Salah made some comments in the presser saying that he didn't know, like he hasn't really spoken to him. But do you think this is a big deal? Because ultimately, as long as he's here for training camp, I don't think so. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's a big deal. I mean, you don't make that trade with the intention to not sign him to the extension that he wants. I think you have to know that going in. They got this guy to replace Bryce Huff, and he's one of the premier edge rushers in the league. You make that trade, you want to get him here. So it's one of those things where there's not much to talk about at this point. So it's going to be a somewhat cause for concern. It's going to be a discussion topic. But at this point, deadline spur in action. When it gets down to it, he's going to be in camp. They'll get a deal done. They'll get an extension for him. It'll match somewhat that 2-year window really that they're looking for. I think he's good for this year right now. There's going to be an extension tacked on. I'm sure it'll be an out after 2025 in some way. So that way, when Rodgers hangs him up, they'll have an out, and then it won't count too much against the cap. But at this point, you don't make that trade if you don't have the intention to have him on the field. He's a big player, premier position, a needed player for this team. So I can't imagine any world where they don't get this done.
Yeah, and I don't think you're making the trade if you didn't think that he was, going to report and you could figure out some sort of deal. It may not be a long-term deal that he's looking for, but I feel like he'll get the money, per year. I think maybe over a 2-year span. Mm-hmm. So I feel pretty good about it. Ultimately, I think it's kind of crazy, but let's not go too crazy. But we did get a comment from Alex. He said that I said something along on the Patreon, but maybe there's a middle ground they can reach where the team adds achievable performance incentives on his deal for the year while not extending it beyond this coming season. I think that's a great idea. I think that they definitely should make it more of a prove it just because he is getting close to the age of 30. But at the same time, if he produces, he's going to have a lot more leverage. So they do have to be careful. And you don't want to commit too much money to a guy who's going to be over 30 next year. But I'm not too concerned. But if he's holding out in training camp, then it's obviously a cause for concern. But let's keep an eye on it when they get to minicamp this week.
Absolutely. I mean, again, it's one of those things. He knew he was excited to come to the Jets when the trade happened. The Jets were obviously excited to get him. You get a player who, in the immediate term, is probably a better pass rusher than Bryce Huff, and unquestionably a top 5, maybe top 3 edge rusher in this league still. If you're the Jets, you have to get this done. This is a win-now team with a win-now roster, and he is a very, very key piece to their success this season and next season. So, again, I said it. You have this 2-year window with Rodgers. You have to do everything and anything that you can to get this done, to make sure that he's on the field for 24 and 25. Simple as that.
Just protect him.
Exactly. That's it. And from his standpoint too, you got to come in. I mean, he was on a very good team, obviously, and a good defense in Philadelphia. But you come in here with the corners in the back end that the Jets have. You couple yourself with Quinnen Williams and Jermaine Johnson. He's got to be licking his chops to get out on the field with the Jets and produce the way that he thinks he could and should, honestly. Putting up the numbers that he has over the course of the past 5-6 seasons, it's got a chance to really be better. So if you're Hassan Reddick, you got to be licking your chops to get out on the field with this defense as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of room to eat. Hopefully we see a massive step from Will McDonald. I mean, we know that Jermaine's probably going to take an even further step from year 2. We're all excited about him. I know that the clip of his pick 6 against the Browns is resurfacing this week. I think NYJ Matt or NYJ Mike, I apologize if I'm butchering which one of you it was. I did see it and I got really giddy just because JJ was such a fun watch last year. And who knows? He may get to have a second consecutive Pro Bowl nod, and that'd be awesome to have a Jets edge doing that, considering the state of the position from this franchise, basically post John Abraham and Sean Ellis. But But anyway, let's move on to Rodgers because we finally have gotten to see him on the field and back in action. I know in December he was clear for practice, but it was just like more behind the scenes. We didn't get to see anything. There was that whole article on ESPN.com talking about how it was like a magician when he first practiced back in December. But seeing that no look from Garrett Wilson, it's like we're back to last year when the optimism was super high and like we're all just so giddy to see it. But at the same time, you're like trying to keep yourself guarded because you know his Achilles does have the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever again. But like at the same time, I'm excited, but I am so protected and guarded. Like I need to see him on the field for 5 plays, and then maybe I'll feel a little bit better. What about you? How you feeling about
Yeah,
Rodgers?
I mean, you say do the funniest thing ever. Like, I don't know if I classify it as funny at this point, but yeah, I hear you. It's great to see him back out in the field. And I know that I think Brian Baldinger had an interview where he was like, when Rodgers throws the ball to number 5, like the ball doesn't touch the ground. That's the kind of stuff that really gets you excited and gets you juiced up for this year. I mean, when you think about Aaron Rodgers and the talent that he is, he may be the most talented thrower of the football that the league has ever seen. And he's definitely the most talented quarterback that the Jets have ever had in this roster, really bar none. So to think what a mediocre year in Aaron Rodgers' world could mean for the Jets, like it's really insane. Like a mediocre year, 80% of what he can be for the Jets would be the top quarterback season I think we'd probably ever seen. So knowing that he's going to be our quarterback with this roster and thinking to there's a lot of ways I can go with this, but you think to the way that we felt last year coming into this season and how good you thought this team could be. And really it all kind of fell apart in 4 plays in all honesty, but they kept us hanging for a little bit. Right. But you think of how much that talent level of this roster has improved since the start of the 2023. And then you add Aaron Rodgers back into that mix. Like this really has a chance to be not only a very good team, but a very good offense. And seeing what he does back on the field is truly exciting. And the one thing that I will say is that the Jets went 7-10 last year with arguably the worst quarterback play in the league, with Zach Wilson and Tim Boyle, and finished up with Trevor Siemian. So to not think that the Jets could steal another 3 to 4 games, be 3, 4, 5 games better with Aaron Rodgers at the helm, I think is kind of crazy for us to think, right? I mean, it's got to be. I know not everything is equal, not everything happens in a vacuum, but just from that simplistic approach, there's no way that Aaron Rodgers doesn't make this team 4 games better at least. So I can't wait until September. I can't wait to see him back out on the field. It's going to be truly exciting. And I know we spoke about this. I always go towards the emotional side of Jets fandom, but there's just a big part of me that just feels like we endured everything that we did last year so we could have this moment, so we could kind of like get it all out there, hit rock bottom, because really there's got to be nowhere that we can go but up.
That was beautifully said. You hit up
you,
basically all the things I've been. No, I love it. We did get some questions in the chat that I definitely want to get to. So first from Randy Martinez, he said lack of depth on the offensive line or outside receiver. I would say outside receivers probably a little more concerning just because of Mike Williams' health. But I know obviously tackle with health and especially in the interior is a little bit of a question. But I think the receiver depth behind the top 2 guys is certainly a question mark. The other question was, is Izzy's roster status in jeopardy? I would say yes. What do you think about that, Russo?
Okay, so I'll go back to the first one. So really, O-line depth, I'm not really concerned about. When you have Olu-Fashanu as your top swing tackle, really, and then you have Wes Schweitzer and Max Mitchell as your 7-8, and then Carter Warren, who I know there's trepidation always because you hear this from the Jets, but it seems like the Jets brass is really high on. So you got 7, 8, and 9 with Schweitzer, Max Mitchell, and Carter Warren. I think you feel really good about that, especially considering what we've known over the past few seasons and how the injuries to the offensive line have contributed to our downfall. So I would put my bigger concern on the receiver room, simply because you signed Mike Williams that you feel really good about, but he's coming off an ACL. He's questionable, I'd say, to start the season. So you're still looking at Alan Lazard or Jason Brownlee. So you kind of hope that Brownlee's the guy that steps in and maybe makes a big leap, or you really hope both these things happen, or you hope that the return of Aaron Rodgers kind of, makes Lazard look a hell of a lot better than he did last year. Answer question number 2, I'd say Izzy Abanikanda status is definitely in question. I mean, even with all the things going on last year, Breece Hall was obviously a workhorse, but Izzy really couldn't work his way onto the field until it was garbage time. And the Jets go out and they draft 2 running backs back-to-back. Braylon Allen looks like a beast. And then they go and sign Tariq Cohen, which I think that's more of a return thing. But still, I think you'd be crazy to think that Izzy's roster status isn't in question. I mean, the fact that he had some juice in the preseason last year was great, but clearly he couldn't get on the field during regular season, and a big part of that was pass protection. And really, this is the same staff, and knowing what we know about pass pro and a 40-year-old quarterback, man, that's going to be a big thing. So it's crazy to think he's not at least in jeopardy.
Yeah, and it sucks because everyone was so super excited about Izzy, especially when you saw like the little storyline they did about him in Hard Knocks last year. But you got to produce. It can't be just in the preseason, and he had one touchdown. And they did give him an opportunity late in the year. I know that it was just like not a good situation. One, because of the quarterback play. Two, because of the injuries on the offensive line. But it's in the type of league that this is, you got to make the most of your opportunities, and he didn't seem to do it. We did get a question from Dano Jet Show. He said predictions for 2025 cornerback 2. That's actually a juicy one. Do you have a take on that?
Yes, I really think it'll be Brandon Echols, to be honest with you. I think DJ Reed, they're not going to afford it. They're not going to be able to afford it. I think he's getting up there in years. As good as he is, as good of a leader as he is, I think you can survive with a guy like Brandon Echols on the outside, especially if they re-sign Michael Carter II. Like, that's the bigger need of the two, is getting Michael Carter under contract long-term. So I think a guy like Brandon Echols, I'm a very big DJ Reed fan, but I think you knock on wood, say if he goes down, I think you feel pretty good about Brandon Echols sliding into that role. I think he's produced. I think he's a serviceable number 2 corner outside of, on the other side of Sauce. That's who I would say is a logical shoe. And I think considering the state of this team, what the defense does, what the defensive staff looks like, their ability to kind of bring players along, I think that would be the logical shoe in there. What do you think, Steve? Like, am I not seeing something?
No, I think it's totally fair. And I think Echols has shown an ability to produce when thrust into a starting role. Is he like a high upside cornerback too? Probably not, but he's certainly a decent spot starter. I do think that they really like the kid that they got from, I believe, the CFL. I can never say his name correctly, so Stiggers. So I don't want to butcher it, but I think that their goal would probably be to develop him maybe into the 2025 cornerback 2. He's already shown some highlights, in the early practices. I know it's the spring, so it doesn't really count, or summer, depending on how you look at it. But at the end of the day, it's certainly not going to be DJ Reed. I would be absolutely stunned just because of the age, and typically corners on their 3rd contract. But I love DJ Reed. I know he had a down year last year, but I think he'll bounce back in a big way, knowing that he's probably going to get one last deal before his career is over.
Yeah, at this point, when you objectively look at it, you can't look at the DJ Reed signing and not think it was probably one of the better signings that Joe Douglas has made through his tenure. Like, he's been solid pro, solid leader, good player on the field. That's a good contract. That was a good signing.
Yeah. I mean, you and I certainly have our thoughts on JD, but I think he had a great offseason. I won't deny it, given my criticism of him in the past. But, you got to give credit where it's due, but it also has to be shown on the field, which to this point, it hasn't. It's the best we've gotten is a 7-9 or 7-10, depending how you look at it. Same amount of wins, but because of the extra game, he's had back-to-back 10-loss seasons, even though they got 7 wins. But again, let's see how it all goes. If things go to plan, I think that there is a lot of optimism and upside for this team. But again, you can't ignore the obvious with it. So let's just hope that we have better luck from the quarterback perspective from an injury standpoint. But I'm going to be guarded the whole summer. That's the sad truth, and I'm not going to hide from it.
100%, man. I agree with you.
I want to move to Keith Carter's comments. I know it's not the biggest deal in the world, and at this point, it's certainly a slow news day just from a Jets and NFL standpoint. We're basically at the quietest point of the calendar year. But it was refreshing to see him really give an honest assessment of himself. It obviously could just be coach speak, given he knows that there's negativity, publicly about him, whether it be from Jets players on social media, from former Titans players. I know Taylor Lewan was somebody who was vocal about his displeasure with him, but we're stuck with him. And it's good that he's at least recognizing that he has to change. And he knows that, sometimes his, tone of voice and how he treats players will certainly rub guys the wrong way. But I think I'm optimistic, just the fact that he is self-aware, because you see guys like Adam Gase who felt like he was never self-aware. And I'm just hoping that this leads to better offensive line play, development of Fashanu, and obviously having Tyron Smith there, I think should certainly help. But what do you feel about those comments?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, because honestly, one of the things I like most about this staff, and about Robert Saleh specifically is his ability to look in the mirror and be self-reflective, to realize what he's done right, to realize what he has to work on. I think coming into each season, he has looked at the offseason prior and admitted to the things that he's done wrong and the things that he can improve upon. And I like to see that kind of cascading down to the staff. I think the one thing that you really could point to was the one person you could really point to was Keith Carter, because there were a lot of negative things said about him, like you said, both from former Titans players to, Mekhi Becton making comments, I think, on Twitter. There was a lot. So when you couple the fact that at least he's acknowledging it, because it'd be impossible to not see those comments or hear the things that are said about you, you have to address it. I appreciate the fact that he's addressing it head on. Whether or not it translates to Sundays and to the field, to the practice field, like all that stuff, I don't know. I will say that's a small part. I think the bigger part is going to be having guys like Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses in that room this year, having a guy like AVT back, having Joe Tippmann with a year under his belt. Those are going to be the more important things for the development of a guy like Olu Fashanu, where I think Keith Carter's imprint is probably going to be a little bit less felt than some of those things. I think you get a guy like Morgan Moses and a guy like Tyron Smith to buy in. I mean, they're going to be like the veteran coaches in there. So while I like and appreciate Keith Carter's comments, I like the ability to self-reflect. I think it's a hell of a lot better than saying this is my way and I'm sticking to it and screw anyone that thinks otherwise. So it's a step in the right direction. But I do, like I said, man, I just think recapping everything, I think having two veterans with that kind of stature is going to be a hell of a lot more important than Keith Carter saying, you know what? Yeah, I got some work to do. Let me see if I can course correct.
Totally. We do have a hot take from Randy Martinez in the comments saying, no matter what happens this year, Carter and Hackett are gone in 2025. I don't think that's a hot take. I think it's realistic, but at the same time, if we have a good year and the offense looks good, like, Rodgers is projected, we're scoring touchdowns, they're probably going to come back. I would say, it's more likely that everyone's gone versus just those two specifically. I mean, I wouldn't hate it, given if, we come up short maybe in the wild card round and we're like, we probably need some better coaching on the offensive side of the ball. But I feel like just given how the team is built, if they're keeping the head coach or keeping the other parts of the staff, why would they change that? But you never know. What do you think?
Yeah, them being gone isn't a hot take. I think the caveat there is what he said in the beginning is no matter what happens this year, like if this team goes 12-5 and loses in the divisional round and they have a top 10 offense, but they lose a close one at Kansas City, like I don't think Nate Hackett is gone. I don't think Keith Carter are gone. I think it's the proof is Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers and Nate Hackett together are the key. They're the ones that have won multiple MVPs. They're the ones that have had top offenses in Green Bay. And we know that it's Aaron Rodgers driving that train. So, if everything bottoms out and the Jets go 7-10 again and miss the playoffs, the whole thing is done and everybody's gone. But I wouldn't say that – I don't think it's a far cry, but I would say that if no matter what happens, they're both gone. I just don't see that. And I think – the stories that kind of came out, I think it was Connor Hughes that said it about the Jets looking for that like veteran presence from an offensive coaching standpoint, someone not to call the plays, but to oversee everything. That doesn't really surprise me. I mean, even with Nate Hackett, even with Mike LaFleur, like they had Greg Knapp, they were still looking. I know that Saleh reached out to Gary Kubiak, like people like that. I think he's always kind of looked for that veteran presence to oversee things. So I wouldn't read much into that either. I just, Nate Hackett is who he is, and it's proven he's nothing without Aaron Rodgers. So it's all going to be contingent on how Aaron performs and how this offense performs with Aaron Rodgers having the keys.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So we have our first caller of the show. We got NY Jets FL. He's going to join in 1 second. What's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, what's going on?
Good gentlemen. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Was wondering what your opinion is of Saleh being kneecapped every game, knowing Zach Wilson was not the answer, and the offensive line often injured, and the margin of error you have to play with as a defense in order to kind of cover up for that kind of lack of offense every game, knowing mentally the players going to a game where you'd have to be completely on point and not being even the razor's edge of making mistakes, knowing the game's on the line practically every play. It's got to be the hardest thing to do as a player mentally going into a game and knowing that you're going to be down 10 or 14 points every
Yeah,
game.
that's
So
that's a fair question. I think it certainly weighed on Salah, but at the same time, I think, in football and really in all sports, you have what you have. Injuries are part of the game, and that you sign up for this. So it's twofold. I think he was not getting involved enough on, from an offensive standpoint, and I think that was a problem. But at the same time, there's some things like with the penalties, he can control that. That wasn't necessarily the quarterback. And I think that was a huge problem last year. Russo, what do you think?
Yeah, so I'm like teetering on the fence of this one because I'm a big Salah believer. I've always been. And I think it's a true testament to him and his coaching style for being able to keep the locker room and galvanize it the way that he did last year and in 2022 up until really the wheels fell off. And both of those were, I think, at the hands of Zach Wilson, where it was really tough, and no question. I mean, and you hit the nail on the head too. Like you're really hamstrung. You're the rug is pulled out from under you when you're just that. The inability is there at quarterback at that position. I do think that he did a commendable job handling everything. I think you kind of saw those things where the mentality needed to shift. In that Raider game where he's like, it's going to be a race to 20. Those are the types of things that really stick out to you, where even though you're hamstrung and you're fighting with one hand tied behind your back, it's 2023 at that time in the NFL. You can't go in with that mentality. You have to go in being able to turn it loose and try to score points, because at that point, like playing that type of game, me personally, that wouldn't have been my style. I think you have to lay it all out there and see what you have. And if you know that Zach Wilson isn't the guy, you got to pull the plug. And honestly, I mean, credit to him. He did it in back-to-back seasons. Ultimately, sometimes you had to go back to him for whatever reason. But it was truly, I mean, he had 32 of 32 in that situation. That was the bad quarterback play as we've ever seen, honestly. So I give him credit, but some things I think mentality he could have handled a little differently. That's my take.
Yeah,
Good question, though.
Yeah, I get that. I think the lack of a competent number 2 receiver probably didn't help. Garrett was on an island every game practically, and you can't, and especially teams crowding the line of scrimmage, knowing that Zach is going to flash once in a blue moon, but not consistently. So teams can crowd the box, expose, clamp down on Breece Hall. That guy's a heck of a player. Once we get the line settled and have a competent quarterback in there, that guy's going to he's ridiculous, quite honestly. So I think that really did hamstring Salah and the lack of a backup. But I think that, they fixed a few things this year, which is good. Hopefully Rodgers can come back healthy, and on we go as Jet fans. That's just the way we have to roll with it now, and not worry about 2026. Let's worry about the next 2 years and do like a Tom Brady in Tampa.
Love it.
Absolutely. It's a good point. I mean, honestly, a true testament to what Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall are as players, to be able to do what they did in this offense with Zach Wilson and Trevor Siemian as quarterback, and the offensive line in shambles the way it was. I mean, what Breece did specifically to finish the year from a rushing and receiving perspective is truly insane. So to think what he can do behind a rebuilt offensive line with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, I think is something obviously we're all excited about for 24.
Definitely.
And that's Breece coming off a knee injury too.
Yeah.
I mean, he
should be a lot better this year.
Yeah, he wasn't exactly 100% beginning of the year. Obviously, they tried to ease him in a little bit.
True.
So I didn't want to take up too much of your time, but I enjoy your conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for
joining. We do have another guest coming in. We have our boy Slippery Pete, who's always in the comments.
Yes.
Here he is. What's up, Slippery Pete? Can you hear us?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Hey, we got you.
Hey, guys. How's it going, man?
Good. How are you?
We're excited for this.
Yeah, definitely, man. I'm here on my day off. I'm feeding my kids right now. So I just wanted to get on and rant because week 5, we're going to London, but they still play week 6. I don't understand why they wouldn't take the bye the week after the London trip.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't agree with it either because they did have the option. The NFL gives every team that goes to London the option to take the bye. I think what they wanted to do was just have it more balanced in the middle of the season. But I agree with you. I think it's a lot, from a team mentally, but also physically. It's a huge adjustment. But yeah, I think it's absolutely insane that they didn't take it. What about you, Russo? What do you think?
Yeah, I do. I think you're probably right, though. They probably just wanted to balance it out and have it later in the year. I don't know. I've gone in waves where I've put a lot of stock in the schedule prior to it actually happening. I don't know. I think when you balance it all out, like it's a tough schedule, but I think honestly, like after San Francisco kind of breaks the right way in terms of what teams they play, the quarterbacks they play. So overall, I'm not like too worried about it. I wish they didn't have Buffalo coming back from London, but I understand the sentiment and the reasoning behind not taking the bye immediately and kind of pushing it off down until later in the year.
Gotcha. Yeah, man, because I'm having flashbacks of the Falcons game. And I'm like, how did they lose that? And then like they came back. I think who did they play the week after that? What am I forgetting, man?
I think they had a bye, and then it was New England.
Yeah.
Oh dear God. Oh dear God. I think that's why in my mind I'm scarred from that.
It's totally fair.
Yeah. Because Salah talked about. I'm sorry about that. Salah talked about his time at Jacksonville and them playing. He talked up like, I've been there so many times, and then they came out flat. I'm like, really? It was interesting. But yeah, man.
Yeah, the way that I look at it, like the schedule, obviously you open up Monday night at San Francisco, which may theoretically be the hardest game of the year right there off the bat, right? But you come back and you have Will Levis and the Titans, which is a very winnable game. You have the Patriots coming to the Jets, which is either going to be Jacoby Brissett or Drake May. Denver coming to the Jets, which maybe you'll get Zach Wilson, you'll get Bo Nix, like whoever. You go to the Vikings, you're going to see Sam Darnold or J.J. McCarthy in London. Then you come back for the Bills. So really, those four in between San Francisco and Buffalo are all very winnable games. So you have to feel pretty good about that. And then there is, a 2-game stretch. Home for Buffalo on Monday night and then at Pittsburgh on Sunday night. Those are going to be 2 tough games, but you hope that this team is built for it. And I think, you spoke to Salah saying he's got the history with Jacksonville going over there pretty much yearly. I think like we talked about earlier, he's shown the ability to adapt and kind of adjust things as he sees them. So hopefully he learned from the last time in Atlanta, and who knows, maybe this will work out this year. But I think ultimately you got to have the horses anyway. We got the horses this year to do it if everyone stays healthy. So 12-5, here we come.
That's the hope.
12-5.
I'm saying 11-6. 11-6, but I could see 12-5 for sure.
Yeah, we need a home game. We need a home game in the playoffs.
We do badly.
More like I need air. We need that home playoff game.
Big time.
But yeah, slip and repeat. Glad to finally get you in here. We're definitely going to be doing these more often throughout the summer and even every week throughout the season. But it's great to chat, and have a good one. Have a good weekend.
You as well, man. Thank you so much. I love you
Later.
guys.
Thanks, guys.
I'm loving the callers, man. It's fun.
Man, it's good.
It feels a little WFAN-ish, but a little bit different because we kind of do whatever we want to do. Hopefully, we don't get any Mongos who are just like pranking and everything. But we did get one last question in the chat from Dirkman. He just said, have you guys heard anything about how Braylon Allen looks in OTAs? So, we've seen the pictures of his physique, which is awesome. He looks like an absolute tank. But I know he had that one highlight play from Rodgers. I didn't see it, but it was like a long, 71-yard touchdown. And then I think Garrett Wilson had an even better play. So that's as much as I've heard about him. I'm sure there'll be a lot about him during minicamp. But Russo, any thoughts on him so far?
I just think the more I hear about him, the more I see him, the more excited I get. I'm a big fan of diversity in the backfield, of having different facets to the game in the backfield. And I think Breece Hall is electric. He's a home run hitter. He has the ability to be elusive and obviously extremely fast and a breakaway home run hitter at any time. When you combine that with a guy like Braylon Allen, who is going to be a bruiser and that short yardage back and someone that's just going to physically dominate, that stuff excites me. So the fact that thinking about him kind of vulturing touchdowns away from Breece Hall, for Breece Hall fantasy owners, that could suck. But for Jets fans, that could be really good. Having Breece Hall just kind of nickel and dime you all the way down the field for Braylon Allen to come in and just hammer in a 1 or 2 yard touchdown run. Those are the types of things that excite you. And I think he's got a real good chance to be honestly, I think I always go, you know me, Steve, I always go back to Jets nostalgia, but truly like a Sean Green or a Lamont Jordan type, to where just that big physical runner that kind of imposes their will, where you hope that in the fourth quarter, the Jets are going to have a lot of leads that they're protecting, and they're going to be running the ball to running the clock out. And this could be a guy that for 3.5 quarters, they've been seeing Breece Hall and just getting exhausted and run down. And then this guy comes in and he just beats the hell out of you. Like, that is the hope. So he's one. Like, I'm extremely excited about Malachi Corley, but Braylon Allen, I think, is going to be that guy throughout the summer that is going to be, he's going to catch eyes, and he's going to start gaining some steam, and people are going to be a little more and more excited about him as the season approaches.
Yeah, I totally agree. You know, it's a good guy, a good comp for him. I mean, I don't know if like stylistically, but just of like being able to wear guys down. Marion Barber, he was just a physical running back. That would be a perfect complement, like a thunder and lightning situation. Not to copy the Giants because they had Earth, Wind, and Fire, but yeah, I'm excited about him. I think he's going to get his opportunities, especially because they don't really have, you know, a veteran outside of Tariq Cohen, unless you consider Izzy a veteran because he's in year 2.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's going to be fun. But any closing thoughts, Russo? This has been a lot of fun to get back into it.
Yeah, I mean, we're recapping everything here. I mean, so much has happened over the course of the last few months that we haven't had a chance to talk about. The uni reveal, which I think we are extremely excited about. Like, that's probably the best thing of the offseason so far. So I can't wait to buy some jerseys for me and my whole family. Like, Jack is beside himself. He can't wait to get that G5 jersey. He wants G5 all black, and I'm all about it. So that'll come before September. But honestly, no, it's been really fun. It's been good to get back after it, talk Jets football. There's a lot of things going on still in early June here. There's only going to be more stuff going on as we approach more mini camps and training camps. But good to get back at it with you, man. What are your closing thoughts?
Same. We didn't even talk about that because it happened in between the last time we did a stream and everything. But yeah, they nailed it. They finally like realized that it's not that hard. We don't need to overdo this. They went back to the look that people want. I just love seeing like the logo. Like if you see it like on a TV graphic, or you look at like on ESPN.com and you're looking at like stats and stuff and articles, it's just really cool to see because it's just such a better, you know, logo and everything. And they nailed it. It's just a matter of, you know, Fanatics getting their shit together and things actually shipping on time. It took a month and a half for my t-shirt to come.
Jeez, I didn't realize that. I haven't bought anything just yet, but I'm about to.
I've seen everyone else complaining about it on Twitter, so it's certainly a fan base wide problem. But yeah, Russo, this has been a lot of fun. We got to get more of these. We'll do some nostalgia ones when it's in a dead period between minicamp and training camp. But yeah, it's been great, and we do appreciate everybody. It's been about 100 of you who tuned in live, whether it's on Twitter or on YouTube. We're certainly going to be incorporating callers going forward. I think it's awesome to hear you guys and give you guys a chance to vent, just because we're Jet fans. We need a chat. We need somewhere to vent. It's important to us. It keeps us sane, you know.
We'll be your therapist. We're here. We're here for you.
Jets therapy, like Dr. Malfi in Sopranos. But appreciate everybody, and we'll be live soon.